Hey, Jill, can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, Maria.
Good afternoon.
All right, guys, it's 1 p.m., so we'll go ahead and get started. And this is being live streamed to YouTube, and we'll be able to watch it later for those that can't attend. My name is Jill Nobles. I'm with the Emerald Coast Regional Council. We are staff to the Okaloosa-Walton TPO, or Transportation Planning Organization. And this is the Transportation Alternatives Set-Aside Program Educational Workshop. Go ahead. Today, I'll go over introductions now. With the ECRC team, we have Katie Foltz running the public involvement profile and the chat for us. Ray Emery McPhee, also with the public involvement, and Mary Beth Washnock, our transportation planning manager. Then it looks like we've got Chris Wallace with Funiac Springs, Jeff Kozad with the City of Destin, Maria Showalter with FDOT, Michael Anderson and Roy Petrie with Okaloosa County. And I think that's everyone. So thanks so much for attending. And if you have any questions, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. But so today we are going to review the Transportation Alternatives, or TA, set-aside program. We'll review the adopted TPO's scoring criteria, go over the schedule for submitting applications. I'm going to let Maria talk a little bit about the FDOT application process, and then go over some frequently asked questions that we've received in the past of how this process works, and some questions, answers from us on our end of how we process those applications. So the TA set-aside program, it's intended, just like the name implies, transportation alternatives. So we're talking about other modes than a vehicle traveling. So mostly pedestrian bicycle facilities, but also recreational trails, safe routes to school projects, and even community improvements such as historic preservation and vegetation management and environmental mitigation related to stormwater and habitat connectivity. Eligible projects per the federal guidelines for the TA funding. Because the criteria adopted by the TPO is heavily focused on safety, most of the projects are, like I said, bicycle and pedestrian facilities, but they can be other infrastructure related projects that provide safe routes for non-drivers, including children, older adults, individuals with disabilities, and even like recreational trails, like conversion and use of abandoned railroad corridors. And then the other amenities along those routes, like turnouts and overlooks, like scenic viewing areas. And then some other less, I would say, popular features, including removing outdoor advertising, historic preservation and rehabilitation of historic transportation facilities. Like I said, vegetation management in those transportation rights of way, and even archaeological activities and environmental mitigation. And of course, their Safe Routes to School projects are also eligible under the TA process. But given all the criteria and everything, you may want to submit a separate Safe Routes to School application through that process. So some things to know before your jurisdiction wants to submit an application. We are limiting 2 applications per jurisdiction. So Okaloosa County or the City of Destin, we are asking only 2 applications from each of you. That is because the TPO as a whole, which includes Okaloosa and Walton County and those cities within, will only be providing a resolution to FDOT of the top 2 projects in the TPO area. Also, TPO or TA applications will be submitted through FDOT's grant application process, or GAP, and this is what we utilized last year. So if you submitted an application last year, you should be familiar with this process, as well as there's other programs that FDOT uses the GAP process for. So those applications will be, the TPO deadline is December 17th of this year. I'll go into the GAP website then and pull out all the applications and verify the scoring that is submitted with those applications. And then in January, we will have a application review workshop prior to the February TPO meeting. That way, everyone that submitted an application can look at all the applications and understand the scoring. If TPO staff has any changes to that scoring based on our review, we'll go over that at that point. And then in February, we'll get the TPO to submit a resolution with those top 2 projects. So the project scoring criteria must be completed and submitted along with the FDOT TA application. That means that you have to fill out the appropriate points. What you're claiming gets you points in the project score column. That way it just makes it easier on staff to verify those points. And like I said, if staff determines there's any changes that need to be to those points, we'll review those at the workshop in January. Also with that, so any points that you are claiming, we will need evidence of that, whether that's in the narrative of the project or the attached maps or data showing how you're getting those points. We do have on our on the TPO website in the planning and documents section, we have both of these documents, the scoring criteria and the supplemental guidelines document, to use to help you with this process. Those supplemental guidelines we have a lot of these screenshots from that in this presentation, but if you want to view those later, that's where you'll find them. So the current adopted scoring criteria for the TA applications, it is based out of 100 points, with the most points going to safety. There's a total of 7 criteria, and that we will go over in the next few slides. So for the first criterion, safety, we are asking for crash data if you are claiming that it will help with, relieve crashes. So crash data reports, you need to use the Signal 4 analytics data. If if you've never accessed that, just let me know and we can get you in contact with Signal 4 to get you login information to be able to use that database. If you're claiming accidents that are not in the Signal 4 database, then just let us know, and we'll work that out with you to make sure that you are able to claim the appropriate number of crashes along the corridor. For avoiding moderate and high crash corridors, again, you'll need to use that Signal 4 analytics report, and that would be crashes within a quarter mile of the project. If you are claiming points that it is addressing a safety issue, such as improves mobility for disabled, elderly, or youth population, just, we'll need the evidence to support that point by just providing the name and address of the facility, of the affected facility, and note that on the map. Same thing for improving access to areas within or adjacent to an area with 50% households below the poverty rate. You'll just need to pull that data from the census website. And for design encourages traffic calming or vehicle lane narrowing. You can explain this whether that's in the project narrative, or if you have a site plan or conceptual rendering that shows those design components that would calm the traffic. Improves visibility of non-drivers to motorists. Again, just provide the evidence of why you're claiming that point. For reducing human exposure, there's two ways to get points there: physical separation barrier or defined space. And same as like I'll say, and with all these, just provide that evidence, whether that's a description or map or site plan. And vehicle traffic, you'll need to use the AADT, or average annual daily traffic, for the roadway facility. If your project is on multiple roadways, you'll need to use the highest average annual daily traffic. Don't count all the roads in that, just pick the highest one, the one with the highest daily traffic. And if you're claiming that, say you're building or wanting to build a sidewalk on a parallel route to a high traffic roadway, then that roadway, it will need to be a quarter of a mile away from the project at least, or well, within a quarter of a mile, and just explain that you're trying to get the people to use the less trafficked road, so that way they're reducing their exposure to all those vehicles. The second criterion is connectivity, and there are two types here: general connectivity, which is just you'll just need to provide maps or descriptions to justify the improved access, if you're connecting gaps within a sidewalk or bicycle network, or conforming to existing plans. If you're adding to the overall plan of your network. And then for transit connectivity, you'll just need to show the distance from the project from the transit stop on a map. The third criterion is location efficiency, and in the supplemental guidelines, it specifically lists the type of places that are high interest, moderate interest, and low interest destinations. And again, a map showing this will help provide that evidence. For the fourth criterion, it's public support. So local governments must provide resolutions of support. This is part of the FDOT application. But for this, to get points, you can also get other private and public sources can provide letters of support. But if any of those are used, the documents must be dated within the last 3 years. So if you are resubmitting a project, just be sure to check the dates on those documents. The fifth criterion is proximity to school. And you'll get points if the project, I believe, is within 1 or 2 miles. If it's closer, you get more points, but if it's within 2 miles, you'll still get some points. And again, just attach a map with, like a buffer around it showing the 1 or 2 mile radius and where the school falls within that. Criterion 6 is design quality. So this is, you'll get points for like the first subset is addressing both walking and biking. So as opposed to just providing a bike lane adjacent to the travel lane, you would get more points if it was, maybe a multi-use path addressing both walking and bicycling. And then there's other design criteria that will get you additional points, and that's buffered or protected bike lane or multi-use path. And then other amenities like bike parking or seating for pedestrians, trailheads, or staging areas and parkings for those bike ped facilities. And even design amenities like fitness stations, public art, lighting, wayfinding signage. And also, if prior phases under construction or if prior phases of the project are under construction or have been completed, that will also get you additional points, as well as if right-of-way is not needed or has already been secured by the local government. And again, all of this will just need to be justified, whether that's in the project narrative or a map or a design rendering showing these amenities will be included in the overall project. And then the criterion 7 is environmental and archaeological and historic preservation type of improvements or kind of design elements to the project. I'm not going to go over each of these as to not, read the slide, but there are, different from renewable energy sources to environmentally sensitive lands, historic preservation, access to certain activity centers, removing visual blight, even vegetation management type of practices. And again, most of the text on the right is just make sure that if you are claiming those points, that something in the application justifies it. So the overall schedule for submitting your TA applications, they are due on the Florida Gap website by December 17th, 2021. That's a Friday afternoon. On Monday, I will pull those applications and start reviewing those internally with our staff just to confirm the points that you are claiming. We will hold an application review workshop in January, just so everyone else can see all the applications that were turned in and the rankings. And if staff has any changes to those rankings, we'll review those at that time. And then in the February TPO meeting, we will go over that with the TPO board and ask for a resolution supporting the top 2 ranked projects. I'm going to hand it over to Maria now to go over the GAP process with the FDOT application.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Maria Showalter with DOT. Thank you, Jill, for explaining the TA program once again very thoroughly. I think most of y'all should be familiar with our solicitation process. The solicitation letter that Jill is popping up on the screen has been sent out last week to all of our contact lists. So if you are not familiar with the solicitation or have not seen it, please let me know via email so I can get this solicitation out to you and the documents that are required to be submitted for application. If you'll click forward a couple. So our application has not changed this year. It's the same as it was last year. We've revamped it back in 2020 and now have a user-friendly, fillable PDF. We require so much information based off of us to be able to do a complete review of the project and be able to select constructible projects. So our application is currently still 8 pages long. It is cumbersome, but please understand the information that we require in this application is needed information to do a complete review of the project. Again, the application has not changed any, but if you have questions on filling it out or get stuck on any part of it, please feel free to reach out to me and I can walk you through it. Any questions on the application so far? Okay, if you'll click on forward. One more. As Jill stated, the TA program is going through the GAP process this year. Last year, D3 elected to go ahead and start the transportation alternative in the GAP. We were not required to do that, but most of our local organizations were already familiar with the GAP process. So we went ahead and started it. So this really shouldn't be anything new for our applicants this year, but if it is new for you and you do not have access to GAP already, please reach out to me as soon as possible so we can make sure that you have the proper access. It's a fairly easy program to navigate through. So all you will need is basically a username and a password. If you have not got a username yet, once I set you up in GAP, it'll send you an automated email where you'll set up your password. Click forward one. So I'll just quickly walk through with y'all the GAP process in case there's some of y'all that are not familiar with it. Once you log into GAP, you will see a home page, which is called your dashboard, and you will have several tabs at the top of your page, and one of them will be listed applications. So you will click on that, and once you click on it, there will be some tabs on the left. If you click forward one, Jill. There'll be some tabs on your left, and one of them will be called Grant Opportunities. You will then select your organization in the organization box, and it'll pull up all the opportunities that you have for your organization. Please click forward. So here, for instance, you see Bay County has been selected as the organization, and this is just an example. Currently, the only opportunities that are available are transportation alternative and trip. But as other programs become available, such as our local programs, SCOP, SCRAP, SIGP, landscape and beautification, safe routes to school, any of those, once you click on your organization, you'll be able to see all of those applicable opportunities that you have within the GAP process. Click forward one. And then once you select which program you're applying for, that apply button, it'll bring you to the actual application page. It's just simply and straightforward. You'll list your description of your project. Click forward one. And then following that description of the project, you'll see a page that has listed all of these documents that need to be attached. Please understand that these documents, all of them are required to be attached. So there must be a green checkbox on your left-hand side before you'll be able to actually submit an application. The scoring criteria that are required by the TPOs, you will have to select which area you're in and you will also have to have that in with your application. Click forward one. And then once you have attached all the needed documents and all your buttons are green on the left, at the top where you see application deadline and then it says status not submitted, that box will turn green and it'll turn to submit application, and you'll be able to apply at that time. But until you click that box up there, your application is not finally submitted. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Jill. I think I stormed through that, but if anybody has any questions on the application or how to apply in GAP, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you, Maria. Right, here we go. Now we'll go over some frequently asked questions that we've received in the past. So one of them is, can I turn the resolution in late? And I will say there's going to be a small window of time after our December 17th deadline that we will allow you to submit resolutions slightly late, as long as it's before January's workshop to review those scores. You'll be all right. So please, I do advise you to get on your local government's December meeting agenda to get these resolutions of support. If design has already been approved, do I need to submit an application for construction? Yes. So for previous projects that maybe only funded design, you do need to submit an application again to try to receive funding for construction of your project. We did say this last year, but I'm going to say it again. Moving forward, FDOT is trying to fund design and construction for a project. Is there a limit to the request for funding? So no, technically there is no limit, but annually FDOT receives about $2 million for District 3, which is a 16-county region, from Escambia all the way to Leon County. And so, just be aware of project cost to increase project viability. FDOT still wants a good project, so not just something itty bitty, but definitely not $1 million project that most likely will not get funded. Is a match required? So no match is required from our local governments for the Transportation Alternatives Program in Florida. These are federal funds that do require, quote unquote, a local match, but FDOT is taking care of that on their end. However, a local contribution is always viewed favorably. So can Transportation Alternative fund removal and construction of new sidewalks? So the TA program may only fund the rehab of existing sidewalks if it's an ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act, compliance project. And if that is the case, you'll need support documentation such as an ADA survey and to define those ADA upgrades. But otherwise, routine maintenance and replacement is not eligible for the TA funds. So how do I know what kind of construction elements and design criteria is allowed? So on this website at the bottom, northwestfloridaroads.com/planning, there's a couple of good resources. There's the FDOT Transportation Alternative Set Aside Program Guidance and Procedures document. And then there's the FDOT Manual of Uniform Minimum Standards for Design, Construction, and Maintenance, or the Florida Green Book as it's known. And that'll help you determine what kind of those construction elements and design criteria is allowed. Another question we get is, do I need cost estimates signed by a PE? No, a PE signature is not required. However, you will see that, a lot of this documentation, it may be best for you to work with your local PE. So please ensure that detailed cost estimates are provided. And again, use the sample construction cost estimate sheet that's also found on the northwestfloridaroads.com page. Does the local government applying for TA funds need to be LAP certified? LAP is the local agency program through FDOT. So if the project is funded, the governmental agency administering the project must be LAP certified or be applying for certification. All right, that is all I have. Here is me and Maria's contact information. Email is the best way to get a hold of us. The websites that were mentioned in the chat as well as in the PowerPoint will be super helpful for y'all. But I will open it up now to questions from anyone in attendance. All right. Like I said, feel free to reach out to me if you do decide to submit an application or if you run into any issues while doing so. Me or Maria will be glad to help you out. I'm going to ask one more time if you got any questions, comments, concerns. Just feel free to unmute yourself and start talking. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. And again, this is available on our YouTube page if you do want to listen to it again or show it to someone else that you work with. I guess we'll sign off and thank you so much for your time and attending this workshop.